The story of the one dime coin of the United States of America is one of the most fascinating journeys in American numismatic history, beginning from the very roots of the nation's coinage system and stretching all the way into modern times, capturing the imagination of collectors, historians, and everyday citizens alike, because the dime is not just a small silver-colored coin worth 10 cents, but rather a historical witness that has traveled through wars, depressions, economic booms, technological advancements, and cultural changes. And every version of the dime tells a different story about the evolution of America itself. When we look at the earliest days of the dime, we have to travel back to 1796, when the very first draped bust dimes were struck, featuring Lady Liberty with flowing hair and surrounded by stars, while on the reverse side an eagle represented the power and freedom of the young nation. And these early dimes, made from nearly pure silver, were not just coins for commerce, but symbols of stability and identity for a country that had only recently declared independence. And because of the limited minting technology of the late 18th century, these coins were often irregular, with weak strikes and imperfect edges, which today makes them extremely rare and valuable for collectors, as surviving examples can sell for thousands and even hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on condition. Moving into the 19th century, the dime went through multiple design changes, each reflecting shifts in American culture and coin artistry. With the capped bust dimes introduced in 1809, which were slightly larger and sturdier, featuring Liberty with a capped head, and on the reverse a powerful eagle holding arrows and an olive branch. And these coins circulated widely in early America, where 10 cents was actually a meaningful amount of money, enough to buy a meal or basic goods. And by 1837, the seated Liberty dime was introduced, a design that would remain for over half a century, showing Lady Liberty seated on a rock, holding a shield and a staff, symbolizing strength and readiness to defend the nation. And during this long era, tiny variations in design, mint marks, and silver content created countless collectible subtypes, some of which are extremely rare today, like the 1874 cc Liberty seated dime minted in Carson City, which has become a legendary rarity in U.S. coinage. As America entered the 20th century, the dime transformed again with the introduction of the Barber dime, named after its designer Charles E. Barber, the chief engraver of the U.S. Mint. And while the Barber dime was practical and easy to mint, it was not especially loved by the public for its artistic appeal. Yet it still holds an important place in coin history because many Barber dimes are scarce due to limited mintage in certain years, such as the 1894 S. Barber dime, which is one of the rarest and most valuable coins in all of American history, with only 24 pieces, holds a unique place in American coinage because it represents not only one of the most essential and longest-running denominations in the country's monetary system, but also tells the complete story of America's growth, artistry, economy, and numismatic culture. And when we begin to trace the journey of the dime, we go back to the very foundation of the United States. Mint in the late 18th century, when the Coinage Act of 1792 was signed by President George Washington, establishing the U.S. Mint and introducing decimal-based coinage, which was revolutionary at the time, since the idea of dividing a dollar into 100 equal parts created a uniformity and mathematical clarity that other nations admired. And the dime, equal to 10 cents or 1/10 of a dollar, was an integral part of that structure from the beginning. Yet the earliest dimes, which began production in 1796, carried with them the image of Liberty on the obverse side, a symbolic representation of the young nation's ideals of freedom, independence, and democracy, while the reverse often featured an eagle, a proud emblem of strength and national identity. And although these first draped bust dimes and subsequent designs like the capped bust were relatively small in mintage and crude compared to modern coins, they established a foundation that would continue for centuries. And as the nation expanded, so did the evolution of the dime, with designs changing to reflect artistry, symbolism, and practicality, eventually giving us beloved issues like the seated Liberty dime, which ran from 1837 to 1891. Showing Liberty seated on a rock holding a shield and a staff with a Liberty cap, a powerful symbol of the era of growth, westward expansion, and industrial progress. And collectors today prize these seated Liberty dimes, especially those struck at branch mints like New Orleans, San Francisco, or Carson City, where lower mintages create extreme rarity. And within the Seated Liberty series, we find amazing varieties, such as dimes with arrows at the date or stars around Liberty, each reflecting minor changes in weight standards or design details. And these variations add depth to the collector's pursuit, turning the dime into more than just small change, but a historical artifact. Then came the Barber dime, introduced in 1892 and lasting until 1916, designed by Chief Engraver Charles E. Barber, showing the classical head of Liberty wearing a cap and wreath. And while criticized for its somewhat uninspired design, the Barber dime remains significant because it bridged the 19th and 20th centuries, being struck during an age of modernization. And today, certain Barber dimes, such as the 1894 S dime, are considered holy grails of U.S. numismatics. Perhaps fewer than 10 known today, and individual examples have sold for over $2 million at auction, proving that even the tiniest coin can carry immense value. Then in 1916, the Mint unveiled what many consider the most beautiful dime ever produced, the Mercury dime, though its official name was the Winged Liberty Head dime, designed by the great sculptor Adolf A. Weinman, featuring Liberty with a winged cap symbolizing freedom of thought. Yet the public nicknamed it the Mercury dime because the portrait resembled the Roman god Mercury, and on the reverse a fasces and olive branch symbolized both strength and peace. This dime circulated through World War I, the Roaring Twenties, the Great Depression, and World War II, becoming one of the most recognized and cherished designs in U.S. history. And collectors today pay incredible prices for rare issues, like the 1916 D Mercury dime with its low mintage of only $264,000, making it one of the most desired key-date coins in all U.S. coinage. And in high grades, these coins are worth tens of thousands of dollars, some even crossing the 100,000 mark, further proving how a dime can become a treasure. And then in 1946, following the death of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the U.S. Mint honored him by placing his portrait on the dime, both because he was a beloved four-term leader and because of his connection to the March of Dimes campaign, which raised funds to fight polio, the disease he himself battled. And since 1946 to the present, the Roosevelt dime has remained the official design, though modified slightly over the decades from its original silver composition to the modern clad copper-nickel format introduced in 1965. Yet silver Roosevelt dimes from 1946 to 1964 still carry intrinsic value for their silver content and are widely collected, while rare error coins like the 1982 No P Roosevelt dime or the 1968 No S Proof dime have shocked the collecting world with auction prices in the tens of thousands because they slipped out of the mint without their mint marks, making them instantly rare. And what fascinates collectors further is how the dime, despite being such a small coin in size, has witnessed the full scope of American history, from early independence to industrialization, through wars, economic booms, recessions, and modern digital economies. And along the way, certain dimes have achieved legendary status, such as the 1894 S Barber dime mentioned earlier, the 1916 D Mercury dime, the proof-only issues with no mint marks, and error coins with missed strikes or doubled dies, all commanding extraordinary premiums. And when we think about the role of the dime in everyday life, it was once crucial for purchasing basic goods, making phone calls from payphones, riding public transit, or playing arcade games. But beyond daily commerce, the dime grew into a cultural icon, linked forever to Roosevelt's legacy through the March of can literally be a fortune in the palm of the hand.